So let's start this off. Can you tell us your full name?
Myron Dennis Quapaw.
And can you tell us all the tribal nations that you are a citizen of?
Well, I'm 3/8 Quapaw, 1/8 Shawnee, quarter Cherokee, and quarter Irish.
Interesting mix. I'm also, I think you can tell, I got more Irish in me. And do you get your Quapaw ancestry from your mother's side or from your father's side?
It's from my father's side.
From your father's side, okay. Can you tell us your parents' names?
My father's name was Charles Melvin Quapaw. My mother's name was Mildred, forgot her middle name, but the last name was Turley before she married.
Okay. And what are some of your earliest memories growing up?
Earliest memories was kind of tough. My grandmother and my aunt on my mother's side raised me. And at the first 4 years, I went to a Catholic school, Holy Family in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In later years, I went to Tulsa public schools. And since I was Native American, going to basically a white school in Tulsa, every day was a fight. You knew you got out of the bus, you were going to be in a fist fight. So I grew up with that for a number of years, and finally, I guess they got tired of fighting me, but it went away eventually. And let's see, went to grade school in Cherokee Elementary in Turley, Oklahoma. Middle school was in Cherokee. Junior high in Turley, Oklahoma. And Turley, Oklahoma was named after my grandfather, the Irish immigrant. And later, well, no, in between high school and going into the Army, I raced motorcycles professionally for a few years. Really, basically all I got out of that was a bad back and a bad knee. I went into the Army, spent 6 years in the Army, come out and had several different jobs. And then I went to work for a company called the Crane Carrier Company. I worked in the field service department on the road for that company for 20 years. It was a Jewish-owned company, and they were really good to me. I have no complaints. I got a new company car every 2 years, had a expense account, plus my salary. Plus any problems I had on the road, they took care of that also. So it was a good company to work for.
Good, good. And I'm going to jump around here a little bit because you did bring up the Army. Do you remember when you first started to think about that, like to enlist? What was some of your earliest thoughts?
Well, I went to, when I was 20 or 21, I don't remember exactly, but I tried to join the Marines. They wouldn't take me because I had bad legs. So when I got drafted, I figured just a matter of going down there and doing a physical, filling out some paperwork, and coming home. But they kept me. I spent 2 years active, 2 years in the reserve, and then 2 more years inactive reserve. My Army career, I went from a private to a buck sergeant in a matter of 24 months. And I rotated overseas after I was in the Army 11 months. Had a 30-day leave, and then I come back and went into the Army and went to Guam. It's a combat engineering company, and we were attached to the Air Force. And our job was to maintain the runway, which we did. But since I was older, they put me in headquarters company, and at that particular time, the headquarters company for the combat engineers was going out and taking care of different problems in the, different companies. I was supposed to have gone to Dominican Republic. We never left. Supposed to have gone to Okinawa. Was there for a short time, very short time. Went to Cambodia for a short time. And the rest of the time I spent on Guam, and we took care of problems within the battalion. The people in first, second, and third companies, they were all young, they were children. And so I think that's why they put me in the headquarters company, because I wasn't as young as they were. I was probably 5 years older than some of them. So
you probably felt like the old man in the company at that time, right? Did you see anything specific? Was there any experiences that specifically stuck out to you over on those islands? You mentioned that you were over on several islands. Did you have any experiences over there that still to this day kind of stick to you?
Well, one thing I remember is when we went into Okinawa, we flew in on C-130s. We stayed on that bird all night until the next morning. But while we were there, the nose was up. They had a Jeep back in. 2 people in civilian clothes. They got out, changed in their fatigues, and they got in the Jeep and took off. And like I say, they come back the next morning, and we sat in that bird, that one airplane, all night, hot. And the next morning, you could see where our web belt was and where our suspenders were, because that part was wet from sweat. And the 2 gentlemen come back, got out, got in their civilian clothes. And as soon as the airplane got airborne, they pulled the curtain back. They said, "Okay, you guys can have a cold beer." All the time we were sitting there, they probably had 100 cases of cold beer in the back of the plane.
So let's move over to the powwow. Can you tell me about what was your earliest experience at the Quapaw powwow?
Early experience, I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And I remember at that time they had an archery. Boy, you could go in there and shoot bows in there at a bale of hay. I liked that real well. And that's basically all I can remember of powwow in my younger years.
Looking at that, how the powwow was back then, has it really changed much?
Yes, it has. I can remember the only light we had was off the fire that was in the center of the dance grounds. There was no lights. And I think probably it was more crowded back then than it is now, too.
Do you think that the changes have been positive, or?
Oh yeah, it's a better program now. They've got more competition between the classes. They got the buckskin, the fancy dress, the fancy dance, and it's just a lot more comfortable.
What about the culture? Do you think the culture of the people has changed?
Yes, it's changed a lot from what I remember.
How so?
They're more open. They more or less speak to, well, I didn't live up in Quapaw. I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So they kind of treated me a little different. And one of the reasons was my mother and dad had a problem before I was born. They got a divorce, so I lived with my mother and grandmother, my aunt. And I probably saw my dad twice from the time I was born up until I was in junior high school. I never saw him after that.
After you were in the service, was there something that you did, like some charity work or something of that nature afterwards?
Before I went into the military, I raced motorcycles professionally. And I did that for several years. Of course, I went into the Army, and then when I come back out, I wasn't really active in any professional competition of any kind. I love motorcycles. I've had a motorcycle from the time I was 14 years old up until 4 years ago. That's a long time. Because right now I'm 88.
So, when I said charity, you kind of went back to motorcycles. Was there some charity work that pertained to motorcycles, or?
Yeah, we rode with a group called Rolling Thunder. And that was a group of people, mostly men, a lot of women in there too, but mostly our goal was to try to get back as many POWs as we could out of Vietnam. And we were fortunate to get a couple out alive. The rest of them, we just got the remains.
That had to be tough. But I mean, it's a great thing to ride for, right?
I thought so.
My father's had a motorcycle all his life too. He's probably got more metal in his body than actual bones. He's been in a couple motorcycle accidents, but I understand the love for motorcycles. I understand you and your wife have done a lot of traveling.
Oh yeah, on motorcycles.
On motorcycles, okay. Can you
Yes.
tell us about some of those travels?
With Rolling Thunder, which we just called Thunder, we rode to D.C. 5 times, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah, 5 times. We've rode all over Oklahoma, the western part of the United States, everything west of the Mississippi. We've rode from the state of Mississippi on up to Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. And then, of course, all the states, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Texas, New Mexico.
Montana.
Huh?
Montana.
And Montana.
Beautiful country.
Oh, yes, it is. And a lot of times when the company would fly me into a customer for whatever reason, I'd rent a motorcycle and do a lot of riding. Just ride. I didn't look at any of the historical markers, didn't look at anything exciting, just rode. Just to get the wind in your hair. I enjoyed that.
I just noticed your shirt. You've been talking about motorcycles all the time.
The reason I bought this shirt, the 6-cylinder Honda that's on here, I had one of those. I just got rid of it 4 years ago, 5.
I don't remember.
But anyway, I had it a long
I
time.
only did done it that point.
And rode BMWs quite a bit. Yeah, while I was riding, I was able to pull a trailer, and that's kind of thrilling at times.
So when you think about, I know you said that your mother and your grandmother raised you. Is there anything, we've heard a lot of tales from the powwow, like the little people and Bigfoot, Quapaw Bigfoot, I think, over there in Baxter. Is there anything like that sticks out to you?
No, since I didn't grow up in, I guess you would call it the reservation area, I missed a lot of the old folks' stories and tales. I do remember hearing one several times. I heard about the big snake in the river.
That's a new one to me. I haven't heard that one. I've swam in that river. Well, when I was younger, I swam in it for years. You're on the Elders Committee now.
Sir?
You're on the Elders Committee now.
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
It means that they're probably showing more, since the Elders Committee has really improved in the last few years. I think it's the point that they're showing more respect for the elders. They're paying attention to what the elders say in some of the business meetings. And that's got its good points.
Is there anybody looking back to your time, and I'll give you a couple examples here. I don't want you to feel rushed on this, but is there anybody from your past on the Quapaw side that really stands out to you, that you looked up to as a younger man?
Probably the person I really looked up to, and it's when I started coming up here to powwows in the 80s, was Ed Quapaw. He was my father's brother. And he had a lot of different things that belonged to Melvin Quapaw. Of course, I got some of them. But he seemed to have more knowledge of things that was happening in the Quapaw tribe than anybody else I spoke to. Or maybe they just didn't bother to tell me because I didn't live up here. Yeah,
That's amazing though. I've heard a few people talk about Ed Quapaw. Did you know him personally aside from?
yes,
What was he like as a person?
he was really quiet. I mean, he didn't speak until he was spoken to. And he had a lot of knowledge. He had a lot of history. And he's repeated some of that history to me, but I've since forgotten most of it. But he was a smart man. He just...
That's who, if you go to downstream, all over the place you see what everyone calls Quapaw Man, and that's Ed.
Mm-hmm, that's Ed. That's Uncle Ed.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you think that is important?
Is there any kind of volunteer work that maybe they
Was there any other volunteer work besides the motorcycle?
community projects, anything like that?
Well, you mean in general through my life?
Yeah, generally throughout your life. Was there any other community projects that you worked on?
I was, go ahead.
Coffee bunker?
Yeah. When we were having a thunder meeting, there's a gentleman come down and asked us to contribute whatever we could to the coffee bunker, because they had a lot of people come in that had problems, and they really didn't have enough money to furnish coffee to all the veterans. So Norma and I, my wife Norma and I, we went out and started soliciting people for coffee, money for coffee, soft drinks, and we spent a lot of our own money buying coffee and soft drinks for the coffee bunker. We'd find it on sale and go get it. And I worked up until I was 80 years old. So it was Norma that was going after all the refreshments. And I think Norma and I probably had a little bit to do with it too. But we made the coffee bunker what it is today. It is really a good place for veterans, especially the young ones that's got PTSD.
It's amazing.
I'm the lady that started the coffee bunker. Both of her sons come home and committed suicide.
Yes.
That's so tough.
And I remember one of our shops broken Muskogee store. One of their guys, volunteer fireman, he said, "Do you need some water?" I said, "Yeah, we'll use it." He sent up on our internal stuff. I think I had 2 pallets of water. And when I took them down to the bunker, there was one of the guys, he said, "Can I have some of that?" I said, "How much you want of this?" Come to find out, his landlord had turned off the water.
You didn't have,
Didn't even get a drink of water.
He had no drinking water. I think we just gave him right then two cases, 48 bottles of water.